My name is Sharon, and by profession, I am an architect. However, on this significant day, I found myself taking on the role of a bride, eagerly making my way down the aisle. I had put my heart and soul into organizing every aspect of our wedding, from the choice of flowers to the playlist that would provide our soundtrack for the evening. I envisioned our special day as if it were lifted from the pages of a romance novel, a testament to the power of love. Standing at the altar was Peter, my soon-to-be husband, who works as an engineer. His approach to life is pragmatic and direct, perfectly balancing my creative instincts. I always felt that we were a great match, enhancing each other's strengths. The excitement of beginning a new chapter with him filled me with joy. However, as our gazes met, I couldn't help but notice a distant, burdened look in his eyes. I attributed it to wedding day jitters. Little did I know I was mistaken. As I walked closer, I overheard Peter's mother, Julie, whispering to someone next to her. Her scrutinizing look made me uneasy, but she managed a strained smile and told me I looked beautiful, though her eyes told a different story. The ceremony moved forward, and when it was time for Peter to speak his vows, there was a heart-stopping pause before he managed to say, "I do." His voice lacked the warmth I had come to associate with his affection for me. During the ring exchange, Julie made it a point to take a photo, loudly stating the importance of capturing the moment. Her words, though seemingly innocent, felt more like a veiled warning than a celebration of our commitment. At the reception, Julie found me mingling with some college friends and commented on my wedding dress with a thinly veiled critique, praising its beauty yet highlighting its non-traditional nature. I responded with a light-hearted remark about celebrating love in our unique way. Before the conversation could go further, Peter stepped in, asking his mother to give us space. For a moment, I thought he was defending our choices, but his comment hinted at resignation rather than support. His words felt out of place on a day that was meant to be filled with nothing but happiness. I scanned the crowd, hoping to lock eyes with someone who might confirm that what I was experiencing was just typical wedding day chaos. Yet deep inside, I knew better. There was a palpable tension, an undeniable sense that something fundamental was amiss, and the red flags were too prominent to overlook any longer. As Peter and I stepped onto the dance floor for our first dance, the distance between us was more than just physical. Our movements were in sync, but emotionally we were worlds apart. The song, intended as a celebration of our union, felt more like a cruel joke. When the music faded, Peter's attempt at reassurance only emphasized the void between us. "So, Mrs. Sharon, ready for forever?" he asked. The irony of his question weighed heavily on me. I wanted to voice my doubts, to question if all our tomorrows would be shadowed by the unease of today. Instead, I masked my concerns with a tentative affirmation, hoping against hope that the gloom would dissipate, and that this rocky beginning was not a foretaste of what was to come. I was unaware that this day would merely serve as the overture to a challenging period that would test not only the resilience of our marriage, but the essence of my identity. As we celebrated our union, the festive toasts felt hollow, overshadowed by a sense of loss. The journey back to my home, a charming 3-bedroom house that stood as a testament to my hard work and independence, marked the beginning of our shared life. This home was meant to be our haven, the foundation for our future together. Yet it soon became the backdrop for a series of confrontations that felt more like an invasion than the start of marital bliss. Julie, living a mere quarter of an hour away, took to visiting uninvited with unsettling frequency. Her criticisms were relentless, targeting everything from my culinary skills to the decor of our home. Her complaints were varied but equally cutting, whether lamenting my tasteless cooking or the choice of bathroom tile color. Peter's attempts to intervene were tepid at best, often seeming more performative than protective. Julie's intrusions became a regular ordeal, each visit an opportunity to assert her dominance through thinly veiled insults and critiques. However, the real turning point came one afternoon when she arrived with suitcases in tow. Her declaration of intent was clear and her sense of entitlement palpable. This was not just another visit, it was an occupation, one that threatened to suffocate the life out of our nascent marriage. "I'm going to be living here now," she announced, breezing past me to place her luggage in my favorite cozy corner by the window. My sanctuary for reading and quiet moments. "This spot will be just perfect for me," Julie proclaimed with a finality that made my heart drop. I turned to Peter, my eyes wide with disbelief, silently begging him to intervene to preserve the sanctity of our home. This was a decision we should have made together. Seizing a moment, I called Peter aside, my voice shaking. "This is our home. Shouldn't we have talked about this first?" His gaze met mine, void of the warmth and love that had once seemed so abundant. "Mom's getting older, Sharon. It's not right for her to be alone. She needs to be with family," he explained, stressing the word family in a way that made me feel excluded. "So I'm not family? Is that it?" The words barely left my lips before the tears began to well up, a mix of hurt and frustration. Peter quickly countered, his patience thinning. "You know that's not what I mean, but I owe her this." "What about us? What about what we owe to each other? We're supposed to be building our life together, not living with your mom," I argued, but it was as if I was speaking to a wall. My concerns, my feelings seemed inconsequential. And just like that, Julie's move into our home was decided, steamrolling over my wishes. With Julie's arrival, the dynamic of our home shifted drastically. Every corner of the house, once filled with our shared dreams and plans, now felt weighed down by tension and conflict. My once peaceful reading nook was overtaken by her belongings. The kitchen became a stage for her critiques. And Peter, the man I had married, seemed more like an ally to Julie than to me. It dawned on me that I was no longer just fighting to save my marriage or reclaim my space. I was fighting for my very sense of self, my dignity, and my peace. A persistent thought haunted me. How had things come to this point where my desires, my space, and my voice were secondary to Julie's preferences? The transformation was stark. My beloved nook was now a monument to Julie's intrusion. The kitchen was a battleground for her relentless criticism. And my husband had become a stranger, aligning himself with what felt like the opposition. This was only the beginning. Life, already challenging, became an unbearable nightmare as the atmosphere in our home grew increasingly oppressive, symbolizing the shrinking of my own space and voice. To add to the mounting pressure, a discovery brought everything into sharper focus. The unmistakable presence of 2 blue lines on a pregnancy test signaled a new life amidst the turmoil. This revelation intensified the situation, making the already dense atmosphere in the house almost suffocating. As I grappled with the realization that the stakes were now even higher, clutching the pregnancy test, my hands shook with a mixture of anticipation and dread. I had always dreamt that discovering I was pregnant would be one of the happiest moments of my life, a time filled with excitement and celebration. However, standing alone in the bathroom, tears welling up in my eyes as I faced my reflection, I realized this milestone felt more like a heavy burden. When I shared the news with Peter, his reaction was disappointingly tepid. "Well, that's something," he muttered, quickly diverting the conversation to a renovation idea his mother had proposed. It became clear that Julie saw my pregnancy not just as news, but as her new project. She took it upon herself to oversee every aspect of it, from what I ate to where I would give birth, all under the guise of being helpful. Julie's interference quickly escalated into a form of control. She scrutinized everything I ate, casting judgmental glances at even the simplest of meals, and questioning my weight management, despite my assurances that my diet was doctor-approved. Doctors these days have no clue, she'd scoff dismissively, convinced that her dated wisdom surpassed modern medical advice. As the pregnancy progressed, Julie's demands grew more outrageous. She transformed my home into her domain, expecting me to maintain it to her standards, disregarding the fact that I was pregnant and needed rest. "Sharon, why isn't the living room clean yet?" She would demand from her spot in my once peaceful reading nook, now commandeered as her base for endless phone scrolling and TV watching. My protests of fatigue fell on deaf ears, with Julie insisting that pregnancy was no excuse for laziness. Peter's silence throughout these exchanges only added to the strain. His lack of support became painfully obvious, especially during a dinner that erupted into an argument over baby names. Julie's harsh criticism of my chosen name was the last straw. "Enough, Julie. This is my child, and I will decide how to raise them," I countered, my patience exhausted. Her reaction was one of indignation, as if my asserting some control over my own life was a personal affront. Peter's attempt at peacemaking, siding with his mother and labeling me as emotional, only deepened the chasm between us. I was left feeling more isolated than ever, trapped in a home that had become a battleground where my voice seemed to matter less and less. This wasn't just about choosing a baby name anymore. It was about reclaiming my autonomy, my dignity, and the sense of belonging that had been systematically eroded by Julie's overbearing presence. Gazing into the reflection of my once shiny wedding ring, I hardly recognized the woman looking back at me. A woman who was gradually losing everything she held dear: her sanctuary, her self-respect, and most heartbreakingly, her determination to stand up for herself. It was during one of our tense confrontations that Julie, brimming with a vindictive sense of victory, delivered a blow that would alter everything. She coldly suggested that perhaps I didn't belong in their family. Certainly. Here's the text punctuated and divided into short paragraphs without missing any lines. If I couldn't navigate a simple family disagreement, Peter's response, or lack thereof, was perhaps the most painful part. His silence was louder and more hurtful than any words could ever be, making it painfully clear that my ordeal was not just beginning. It had been my reality for far too long. My days turned into a blur, moving through a house that no longer felt like mine, clinging to the only beacon of hope I had left, the life growing inside me. Yet even this small comfort felt under siege in the toxic environment I found myself in. The breaking point came one frigid evening during yet another excruciating family dinner. Despite my efforts to prepare a flawless meal, Julie's criticisms were relentless, attacking everything from the food seasoning to its preparation. Her words felt like physical blows, each comment a strike against my already wavering confidence. But it was her next jab that cut the deepest, questioning my capability as a mother based on my supposed inadequacy in managing household chores. Peter's agreement with her was the final blow, pushing me over the edge. Fueled by a mix of anger, accumulated resentment, and sheer desperation, I found my voice. "Step it up. I've been carrying our child, taking care of our home, and enduring endless criticism from your mother, and you're telling me to step it up." The shock on their faces said it all, but I was past caring. For too long, I had allowed myself to be diminished and belittled, but in that moment, I reclaimed my voice. "I'm done. I can't do this anymore," I declared, the clarity of my decision piercing through the years of suppression. It was a declaration of my refusal to tolerate any more disrespect or emotional torment. I was ready to fight for myself, for my child, and for a future free from the shadows that had darkened my life. My voice broke as I spoke. I refuse to raise my child in a place where their mother is constantly belittled. If this is what being a family means to you, then I want no part in it." With those final words, I left the dinner table behind, their stunned silence echoing in my wake. Grabbing only the essentials, I made my way to the door, my hands trembling as I reached for the knob, eager to escape the suffocating atmosphere. Julie, ever the antagonist, chose that moment for her most cutting remark yet. "And where do you think you're going? This is Peter's house, not yours." I stopped and faced her, my resolve hardening. "Actually, Julie, this house is mine. I bought it. I decide who stays and who goes." Peter's voice broke through, tinged with desperation. "Sharon, please, let's discuss this." But I was beyond negotiation. "There's nothing left to discuss," I replied, my tears a testament to the pain of my decision. Stepping out into the cold night felt like stepping into a new chapter of my life, one filled with uncertainty, but also a sense of liberation. The door closing behind me signified the end of a tumultuous saga, a final farewell to a life I could no longer bear. I walked away, each step a mixture of pain and determination, propelled by the need to reclaim my autonomy. The journey to my parents' home was a blur of cold, fatigue, and heartache. Just a short distance from my haven, a misstep caused me to stumble and fall, the physical pain a mere echo of my inner turmoil. Yet this fall did not deter me, it only strengthened my resolve. Reaching my parents' doorstep, the concern in their eyes mirrored the gravity of my situation. As they ushered me to the hospital, I realized that this moment of vulnerability marked not just an end but a beginning. Lying in the hospital bed with the reality of my circumstances setting in, I understood that returning to my previous life was not an option. This breaking point was a crucial step towards reclaiming the life and dignity that had been eroded away. A painful yet essential transition towards healing and independence. The clarity that comes with such moments is profound, revealing the path forward away from the shadows of the past towards a future of my own making. Caught in a whirlwind of emotions, I stood surrounded by the comforting yet worried presence of my parents. Their concern was palpable, a silent testament to their fears about the true state of my marriage, now unmistakably revealed in its troubled depth. Breaking the heavy silence, my mom voiced her concern, her words heavy with the weight of the unfolding reality. "Sharon, love, what's your plan now?" "Unsure but resolute," I replied. "I'm not sure, Mom, but one thing's clear. I can't return to that life. Not now. Not ever." My declaration, more confident than I anticipated, seemed to echo my newfound determination. My father, who'd been pacing anxiously, paused to reassure me, emphasizing that their support was unwavering regardless of my choice. He reminded me to consider not just my own future, but that of the life growing inside me. His words prompted a silent acknowledgement from me. My mind had been a battlefield of scenarios, each uncertain yet laced with the possibility of a fresh start. The unexpected buzz of my phone broke through my thoughts, a message from Peter, a plea for communication. But to me, his timing was a door long closed. His words unseen were left in the void as I turned off my phone, a symbolic end to our dialogue. My next steps were clear, marked by action rather than words. Reaching out to a family lawyer was my first decisive act towards ending the turmoil of my marriage. Supported by my parents, we navigated the cold legal breakdown of our union, discussing divorce, custody, and financial support. Despite the sterile nature of these discussions, they empowered me, marking the first steps of taking control over my destiny and ensuring the well-being of my unborn child. Within a week, Peter and Julie received the formal notices. Divorce papers for Peter and an eviction notice for Julie from the home that was legally mine. Included were demands for substantial child support and compensation for the emotional turmoil I had endured. Though drastic, these actions were necessary, severing the ties that had long bound me to a life of despair. When I finally re-engaged with my phone, it was flooded with Peter's attempts to reach out. His messages conveyed a mix of regret and a desire for reconciliation. But the scars left by nights of humiliation, years of neglect, and Julie's calculated malice, all silently condoned by Peter, were too deep. The brief temptation to hear him out was quickly overshadowed by the memory of the pain endured. This moment wasn't just about ending a chapter. It was about reclaiming my story, one where the shadows of the past no longer dictated the brightness of my future. The love I once felt for him had been completely overshadowed by the sorrow of our failed marriage. I took decisive steps to move on, deleting messages, removing his contact information, and blocking him across all social media. To me, Peter had become just a part of my history, a distressing chapter I was more than ready to conclude. Despite knowing the road ahead would be fraught with its own obstacles, divorce is complicated, even more so with a child on the way. I was finally navigating my own life's direction, stepping out from the shadow that had enveloped me towards a future filled with hope. The day of the court proceedings, the room was filled with that distinct sterile chill characteristic of spaces where fates are decided. My lawyer sat beside me, her posture exuding assurance, while my parents offered silent, steady support from behind. Across the aisle, Peter appeared lost, the reality of the situation dawning on him, while Julie's expression was one of shock and defiance. As the session began, the judge walked in, prompting everyone to rise. The process that followed was a flurry of legal jargon, with accusations and evidence laid bare. It was as if Julie and Peter were seeing their actions for the first time, not just through the legal lens, but mine as well. When it came to Julie's turn to speak, her usual confidence was absent. She attempted to justify her actions as concern for her son's welfare, but her explanation fell flat, especially under the judge's skeptical gaze. Judge Nina R. Morrison's verdict was clear and firm. I was granted a full divorce and sole custody of our unborn child. Peter was ordered to provide child support, and Julie, faced with a hefty fine for her emotional abuse and harassment, was visibly shaken. As the judge's gavel fell, a sense of liberation washed over me. Though it was not without a tinge of sadness, my marriage had concluded, not with dramatic confrontations, but through the quiet shuffling of papers and the firm voice of justice. This chapter of my life was closed, paving the way for a new beginning, free from the chains of the past. Gaining my freedom came at a price I'd never envisioned on the day I pledged my vows. As we exited the courtroom, Peter approached with a bewildered look, expressing his sorrow and disbelief at how our lives had unraveled. Looking into his eyes, I no longer saw my future, but rather a profound emptiness where love once resided. I never imagined this would be our end, Peter, but apologies can't undo what's been done. I told him decisively, turning away to leave the past behind. Julie sought my gaze, possibly hoping for a sign of forgiveness or recognition, but I couldn't afford her that closure. She had taken too much from me, and I refused to let her see how deeply she had affected my light. Stepping outside, the world seemed to embrace me anew, with the sun shining brighter and colors more vivid. It felt like I was viewing life with a fresh perspective, one not dimmed by the shadows of turmoil. My mother's embrace and words of pride brought tears to my eyes. "You're truly free now, Sharon," she said, her emotion evident. "I couldn't have faced this without you and Dad," I responded, feeling an immense gratitude for their unwavering support. That evening, in the solitude of my home, now solely mine, I felt a deep tranquility. Alone yet far from lonely, for the first time in a long stretch, I was free to live by my own standards. The path ahead as a single mother seemed daunting, yet as I felt my unborn child's subtle movements, confidence washed over me. We would manage, I was sure of it. The ordeal I had endured led me to this moment of self-discovery. While it left scars, they marked a tale of resilience, not defeat. Facing the future, I was not just compelled by circumstance, but driven by choice. This distinction filled me with a profound sense of empowerment, ready for what lay ahead, not out of necessity, but from a place of deliberate decision. I knew this was the start of a meaningful new chapter.
Did you see what she packed for Lily's lunch? Just a sandwich and an apple. What kind of mother does that? My mother-in-law's voice carried clearly through the kitchen window as I stood in the garden, frozen in place. She was talking to my sister-in-law, Amanda, probably thinking I couldn't hear them. I know, Amanda replied. And she's always working on her laptop while Lily does homework. No proper supervision at all. I gripped my gardening shears tighter, willing myself not to react. This wasn't the first time I'd overheard Margaret and Amanda criticizing my parenting, and it probably wouldn't be the last. My name is Emma Sullivan, and at 34, I'm apparently the worst mother in the world, at least according to my mother-in-law. I'd married her son David 5 years ago, becoming stepmom to then 7-year-old Lily. When David died in a car accident 2 years later, Margaret seemed to make it her life's mission to prove I was unfit to raise her granddaughter. I just don't understand why David didn't specify custody arrangements in his will, Margaret continued, her voice dripping with disapproval. Lily should be with real family, not someone who's practically a stranger. I quietly set down my gardening tools and walked inside through the front door, making sure to close it loudly enough for them to hear. The kitchen conversation immediately stopped. Oh, Emma, Margaret plastered on her fake smile. We were just discussing Lily's upcoming school play. Have you finished sewing her costume yet? I met her gaze steadily. The drama teacher is handling costumes this year, Margaret. As you'd know if you'd attended the parent meeting last week. Her smile tightened. Well, a proper mother would want to make her child's costume herself. Before I could respond, Lily bounded down the stairs, her long brown hair flying behind her. At 12, she was the perfect mix of her dad's quiet intelligence and an emerging confidence that sometimes surprised me. Mom, can I show you something? She clutched her beloved journal to her chest, eyes shining with excitement. Of course, sweetheart. I followed her upstairs, grateful for the escape. Lily's room was her sanctuary, walls covered with her artwork and photographs. She sat cross-legged on her bed, patting the space beside her. I wrote something new. Would you read it? This was our ritual. Every few days, Lily would share pieces of her writing with me. Sometimes stories, sometimes poems, sometimes just her thoughts about life. I'd always encouraged her to express herself through writing, especially after losing her dad. I'd love to. I sat beside her as she handed me her journal, open to a fresh page. Dear Dad, it began. Mom and I planted your favorite sunflowers today. She says they're like tiny suns, reaching up to say hello to you. I think she's right. My throat tightened as I read. Lily had been writing letters to David in her journal for months now, processing her grief in her own way. Each one was beautiful and heartbreaking and full of hope. It's beautiful, Lily, I said when I finished reading. Your dad would love it. She beamed at me. Do you think I could write more? Like, maybe a whole book of letters? I think that's an amazing idea. I pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. You can write anything you want. A sharp knock interrupted our moment. Margaret stood in the doorway, lips pursed. Lily, dear, it's time for your piano lesson. Emma, I'll take her today. You probably have work to do anyway. The way she said work made it sound like a character flaw. I bit back a retort, reminding myself that engaging would only make things worse. But Lily surprised us both. Actually, Grandma, I want to stay home and write today. Mom's helping me with something important. Margaret's face darkened. Writing? In that little book of yours? Lily, you need proper activities, not just scribbling all day. Your mother's letting you waste too much time on this nonsense. I felt Lily stiffen beside me. She clutched her journal tighter, and I saw something flash in her eyes. Determination, maybe even anger. It's not nonsense, she said quietly but firmly. I'm writing about Dad, about our family, about everything. Margaret stepped back as if she'd been slapped. About everything. Everything, Lily confirmed, meeting her grandmother's gaze steadily. I watched this exchange with a mixture of pride and concern. Lily had never stood up to her grandmother before, and I could see Margaret was rattled. Well, Margaret recovered quickly. I'm sure whatever you're writing is nice. But piano is more important for your future. Come along now. No. Lily's voice was stronger now. I'm staying here with Mom. We have work to do. Margaret turned to me, eyes blazing. This is your influence, isn't it? Turning her against proper activities against her family? I knew letting her stay with you was a mistake. Wait until everyone hears about this. She stormed out, her footsteps thundering down the stairs. Moments later, the front door slammed. Lily looked at me, worry creeping into her expression. Are you mad at me, Mom? I pulled her into a tight hug. Never. I'm proud of you for standing up for what matters to you. Grandma's going to tell everyone I'm becoming difficult, isn't she? Like she tells them you're a bad mom. My heart clenched. I hadn't realized Lily knew about Margaret's rumors. Probably, I admitted. But the truth has a way of coming out eventually. Lily nodded, opening her journal again. That's why I'm writing everything down. Every single thing, because somebody needs to tell her real story. Looking at her then, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. A strength that went beyond her 12 years, a determination to set things right in her own way. I had no idea then that her journal would change everything, that her words would reach far beyond our little family drama. I just knew that my daughter was finding her voice, and that was worth all the rumors Margaret could spread. Keep writing, sweetheart, I told her. Tell her story exactly the way you see it. And she did. Oh, how she did. 3 months after Lily's confrontation with Margaret, things had gotten worse. The rumors about my parenting spread like wildfire through the family and even into our small community. Margaret had always been influential in local social circles, and her words carried weight. I heard she leaves Lily alone until midnight while she dates men online, one mom whispered at school pickup. My cousin told me she spends all the insurance money on herself, another chimed in. I kept my head high, focusing on what mattered. Lily was thriving, despite or perhaps because of our unconventional life together. Every evening, we'd sit in our cozy living room, sharing stories about our day. She'd write in her journal while I worked on freelance articles, both of us comfortable in our quiet companionship. But one rainy Tuesday changed everything. Mom. Lily burst into my home office, nearly tripping over her backpack. Mrs. Peterson wants to talk to you. About my journal. I followed her downstairs where her English teacher waited. A tall woman with kind eyes, Mrs. Peterson had always supported Lily's writing. Emma, she smiled warmly, I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I had to show you something. She pulled out a literary magazine. I submitted one of Lily's journal entries to Young Writers Quarterly, with her permission, of course. My hands trembled as I opened the magazine to the marked page. There it was, Lily's letter to her dad about the sunflowers, printed in a national publication. But that's not all. Mrs. Peterson continued. The editor called me personally. They want to see more. They think Lily's journal could be a book. I sat down hard on the nearest chair. A book? A real book, Mom. Lily bounced with excitement. About us? About everything. Everything. The word echoed in my mind. Every moment of grief, joy, and resilience we'd shared. Every subtle dig from Margaret, every whispered rumor, every triumph we'd celebrated quietly together. The editor believes Lily's perspective on losing a parent, gaining a stepmother, and navigating family dynamics could help other kids in similar situations. Mrs. Peterson explained. Her voice is extraordinary. That evening, after Mrs. Peterson left, Lily and I sat together reviewing her journal entries. Her words painted our life in vivid detail. The way we'd cook dinner together while dancing to David's old records, our weekend adventures exploring hiking trails, the quiet moments when grief caught up with us and we'd hold each other tight. She'd also written about Margaret's constant criticism, but not with anger. Instead, she described her grandmother's actions with a child's clear-eyed perception. Grandma thinks love is like a pie, where giving some to one person means less for everyone else. But Mom taught me love is like a garden. The more you tend it, the more it grows. As we read, my phone buzzed repeatedly. News of the potential book deal had reached Margaret. "How dare you exploit my granddaughter for money?" her text read. "This is exactly the kind of attention-seeking behavior we've come to expect from you." I showed the message to Lily, who took my hand. "Should we stop?" I asked her. "We don't have to do this if it's going to cause more problems." She shook her head firmly. "Remember what you always tell me? The truth matters. And this is our truth, Mom." Over the next few weeks, Lily worked with an editor to shape her journal entries into a cohesive narrative. She titled it "Sunflowers for Dad: Letters from a Not-So-Broken Family." Margaret's campaign against us intensified. She called family meetings, which we weren't invited to, contacted school administrators with concerns about Lily being exploited, and even tried to consult a lawyer about stopping the publication. But Lily remained undeterred. Each attempt to silence her story only made her more determined to tell it. "You know what's funny, Mom?" she said one night as we reviewed the final manuscript. "Grandma thinks she's protecting our family's reputation, but she's really just scared of the truth." "What truth is that, sweetheart?" She looked up at me, her eyes wise beyond her years. "That family isn't about who you're born to. It's about who loves you enough to let you be yourself." The first advance copy of the book arrived on a sunny Saturday morning. Lily's hands shook as she opened the package, revealing a beautiful hardcover book with a sunflower on the cover. We sat together on the porch swing, turning pages in silence, both crying and laughing at the memories captured in her words. She told our story with such honesty and grace, acknowledging the pain of loss while celebrating the joy we'd found in building our new life together. The final chapter was a letter addressed to both David and me. "Dear Dad and Mom, sometimes people think because we're not a normal family, we must be broken. But we're not. Mom taught me that families are like your favorite sunflowers. They can grow in unexpected places, face whatever direction feels right, and still reach for the light." I hugged Lily close, overwhelmed with pride and love for this remarkable girl who'd found such a powerful way to stand up for our family. That evening, a car pulled into our driveway. Margaret stepped out, holding what looked like an advance copy of the book. Lily squeezed my hand. "Ready, Mom?" I nodded, knowing that whatever came next, we'd face it together, just like we always had. Our not-so-broken family of two, standing strong in the light. Margaret stood at our door, the book clutched against her chest. Her usual mask of superiority had cracked, revealing something I'd never seen before: uncertainty. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice lacking its usual sharp edge. Lily stepped forward. "We can sit in the garden, Grandma, by the sunflowers." The three of us made our way to the wooden bench nestled among the towering yellow blooms. It was sunset, and the golden light caught the flowers just right, making them seem to glow from within. "I read it," Margaret said finally, running her hand over the book's cover. "All of it, twice." "And," Lily's voice was steady, though I felt her hand slip into mine. Margaret paused, seeming to struggle with her words. "I never saw it this way, through your eyes." She opened the book to a marked page and began to read aloud. "Grandma brings fancy cookies to our house every Tuesday. She says Mom's homemade ones aren't good enough. But what she doesn't know is that Mom and I love baking together. Even when the cookies burn, we laugh and try again. Because sometimes the best memories taste like slightly burnt chocolate chips and endless second chances." I remembered that day clearly. Margaret had swept into our kitchen, taken one look at our misshapen cookies, and returned an hour later with a box from an expensive bakery. At the time, it had felt like just another criticism. But Lily had transformed it into something else entirely, a testament to the joy we found in our imperfect moments together. "There's more," Margaret continued, her voice wavering. She flipped to another page. "Mom keeps all of Dad's pictures up. Not because she's stuck in the past, like Grandma says, but because she knows memories aren't something to hide. They're part of our story, just like the new pictures we add every month are part of our story. Our walls are like a map of love, showing where we've been and where we're going." Tears rolled down Margaret's cheeks now, dropping onto the pages. I thought I was protecting Lily, protecting David's memory, but I was wrong, wasn't I? Lily reached out and took the book from her grandmother's hands. "You know what Dad used to say about the sunflowers, Grandma? That they're brave because they keep turning toward the light, even on cloudy days." "He did love these flowers," Margaret whispered, He planted them every spring. And now Mom and I plant them, Lily said. Not to replace him, but to remember him. Just like Mom didn't replace you in my life. She just gave me more love to grow with. The sound that escaped Margaret was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. When did you get so wise, little one? Mom says I get it from Dad. Lily smiled. But I think maybe I learn it from all of you, even from the hard stuff. Margaret turned to me then, her eyes red but clear. Emma, I have been horrible to you. All these years, I was so afraid of losing my connection to David, to Lily, I couldn't see that you were keeping his memory alive in the most beautiful way. By letting Lily be herself, I said softly. By helping her write her own story. The book was already gaining attention. Early reviews praised its honest portrayal of grief, blended families, and the courage to stand up for one's truth. But sitting here, watching Margaret finally understand what Lily and I had built together, felt like the real victory. The book comes out next week, Lily told her grandmother. Will you come to the launch party? I'm doing a reading. Margaret looked surprised, then deeply moved. You'd want me there? After everything? You're part of our story too, Grandma. The hard parts and the good parts. They all matter. That evening, after Margaret left, Lily and I sat on the porch swing, watching the stars emerge. Do you think things will be different now? She asked. I think they already are, sweetheart. I kissed the top of her head. You've shown everyone that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. The book launch was held at our local library. The room was packed with family, friends, and members of the community who had once whispered behind our backs, but now listened intently as Lily read from her journal. Margaret sat in the front row, beaming with genuine pride. During the tea and a session, she stood up and addressed the crowd. My granddaughter and her mother have taught me that family isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about who stays and grows together through the hard times. Later, as we signed copies of the book, a young girl approached with her stepmom. Your story made me feel less alone, she told Lily. Less broken. Lily smiled and wrote a special message in her book. We're not broken, just growing in our own way, like sunflowers. That night, exhausted but happy, Lily and I added a new photo to our wall. One of the three of us at the book launch, Margaret's arm around me, all of us laughing at something now forgotten. It wasn't a perfect happy ending, but it was real. Our story still being written, one truth at a time. 6 months later, Sunflowers for Dad hit the bestseller list. But the real bestseller was the change in our family. Margaret now came over to bake cookies with us, still slightly burnt. Shared stories about David without trying to own his memory, and learned to love our family for what it was rather than what she thought it should be. And every spring, we all plant sunflowers together, watching them grow toward the light, just like us. If you keep this baby, you're dead to us. My father's words echoed through our pristine living room, his face twisted with rage. I instinctively wrapped my arms around my swollen belly, protecting the life growing inside me. At 22, I stood in my childhood home, facing the ultimatum that would change everything. My name is Olivia Parker, and that was the last conversation I had with my parents before they erased me from their lives. The prestigious Parker family couldn't handle the scandal of their unmarried daughter choosing to be a single mother. My ex-boyfriend had disappeared the moment I told him I was pregnant, and my parents expected me to handle the situation quietly, their euphemism for termination. But I couldn't. From the moment I heard my baby's heartbeat, I knew I would choose her over everything else, even if it meant losing my family. Think about our reputation, my mother pleaded, wringing her hands. Think about your future, your father's position at the hospital, our standing in the community. Her voice trailed off as she saw the determination in my eyes. I am thinking about my future, I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. My future is this baby. My father slammed his fist on his mahogany desk. Then get out. You're no longer a Parker. We'll tell everyone you died in an accident abroad. It's better than the shame you're bringing to this family. I remember walking out of that house, my small suitcase rolling behind me, containing whatever I could quickly pack. The perfectly manicured lawn, the imported flowers in their precise rows, the golden afternoon light catching on the windows. Everything looked the same, but nothing would ever be the same again. My best friend Emma took me in without hesitation. You can stay as long as you need, she said, helping me settle into her spare room. Your parents are insane if they think you'll go through this alone. The next few months were a blur of doctor's appointments, job hunting, and trying to build a new life from scratch. I found work as a virtual assistant, something I could do from home while pregnant. Emma's support was unwavering, but the absence of my family felt like a physical ache. The day Lily was born was both the happiest and loneliest day of my life. As I held my daughter for the first time, her tiny fingers wrapping around mine, I knew I'd made the right choice. But part of me still wished my mother was there, that my father would burst through the door with balloons and stuffed animals, proud to be a grandfather. Instead, Emma was my birth partner, holding my hand through every contraction. When she took pictures of Lily's first moments, I couldn't help but think about how these photos would never make it into my family's albums. Through mutual friends, I heard that my parents had indeed told everyone I died in a hiking accident in New Zealand. They even held a small private ceremony, though there was no body to bury. The story spread through our social circles, and soon I started receiving condolence messages from old friends who believed I was dead. I focused on Lily, on building our life together. We moved into a small apartment, and I expanded my virtual assistant business into a successful online management company. Every milestone Lily hit, her first smile, first word, first steps, I documented carefully, creating our own family history to replace the one I lost. Then, 3 years later, Emma burst into my apartment, her face flushed with disbelief. "You won't believe this," she said, thrusting her phone at me. "Your parents are holding a memorial service. A proper one, with a headstone and everything. They're saying it's time to properly lay you to rest now that they've processed their grief." I stared at the invitation on her screen. Sure enough, there it was, a memorial service for Olivia Grace Parker, beloved daughter, taken too soon. The irony was almost laughable. They were literally burying the daughter they'd chosen to declare dead, all to maintain their precious image. "You have to go," Emma said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Show them you're very much alive and thriving." I looked at Lily, playing with her blocks on the floor, her dark curls falling into her eyes that looked just like mine. She was the living proof of the choice I'd made, the reason I'd lost everything and gained something even more precious. "You know what?" I said, a plan forming in my mind. "Maybe it's time to crash my own funeral." Emma's grin widened. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking it's time to show them exactly what they threw away," I replied, picking up Lily and hugging her close. "They wanted to bury their daughter. Let's see how they handle it when she walks right into their carefully planned memorial service." As I put Lily to bed that night, I thought about what I would say, how I would handle seeing my parents again after 3 years of silence. Part of me was nervous, but a stronger part felt ready. They had tried to write me out of existence, but here I was stronger than ever, with a beautiful daughter and a life built on my own terms. The memorial service was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. As I laid out my outfit, a deep blue dress that brought out my eyes, I couldn't help but appreciate the symbolism. They were trying to bury the old Olivia, but I wasn't that person anymore anyway. I was someone stronger, someone who had chosen love over fear, truth over appearance, and real family over false perfection. I looked at the invitation one more time, running my fingers over the embossed letters of my name. Soon, I would walk into my own funeral with my daughter in my arms, living proof that sometimes choosing your own path, no matter how difficult, leads to the most beautiful destinations. Little did my parents know, their perfect memorial service was about to become very, very memorable. Standing outside the funeral home, I adjusted Lily's white dress and took a deep breath. Through the windows, I could see people gathering, familiar faces from my old life, all dressed in black, here to mourn someone who wasn't actually dead. "Ready?" Emma whispered beside me, squeezing my hand. She looked elegant in her black dress, playing the part of a mourner perfectly. "As I'll ever be," I replied, lifting Lily into my arms. "Remember the plan." Emma nodded. "I go in first, blend in with the crowd. You wait until your father starts his speech, then make your entrance." She grinned. "This is going to be epic." I watched her slip inside, then moved closer to the window. The room was filled with flowers, white lilies everywhere, my supposed favorite. In reality, I'd always preferred sunflowers, but that was just one more thing my parents had gotten wrong about me. A large portrait of me from my college graduation stood on an easel next to an empty urn. I almost didn't recognize myself in that photo. The perfectly styled hair, the forced smile, the weight of expectations in my eyes. I hugged Lily closer, grateful for how far I'd come from that version of myself. Mama, why are there so many people? Lily whispered, her small hand playing with my necklace. They're here to see something special, baby, I told her, kissing her forehead. Remember what we practiced? She nodded solemnly. I'm a surprise. Through the window, I watched my father take his place at the podium. My mother sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. The performance had begun. We gather here today, my father's voice carried clearly, to finally lay our beloved daughter to rest. 3 years ago, we lost Olivia in a tragic accident. That was my cue. I shifted Lily to my hip, squared my shoulders, and walked to the entrance. The heavy doors opened silently as I stepped inside. She was always the perfect daughter, my father continued, his voice thick with manufactured emotion. Someone who understood the importance of family, of tradition, of... Sorry I'm late to my own funeral. My voice rang out clear and strong. Traffic was terrible. The reaction was immediate. Gasps echoed through the room. Someone dropped a glass. My mother's handkerchief fluttered to the floor as her hand flew to her mouth. My father froze mid-sentence, his face draining of color as he stared at me, or more specifically, at Lily, who chose that moment to wave cheerfully at the crowd. Hi, she called out. I'm Lily. The silence that followed was deafening. I walked slowly down the aisle, aware of every eye in the room on us. Emma, standing near the back, was barely containing her glee. What is the meaning of this? My father finally sputtered, gripping the podium so hard his knuckles turned white. Well, I heard you were holding a memorial service for me, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. I thought it would be rude not to attend, although I have to say the white lilies are a bit much. I always preferred sunflowers. Olivia, my mother's voice was barely a whisper. She stood up, swaying slightly. But, how? How am I alive? Well, that's simple. I never died, you just wish I had. I shifted Lily in my arms. Everyone, I'd like you to meet my daughter, Lily, the reason I was declared dead 3 years ago. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I recognized faces from my past, my parents' friends, colleagues, people who had sent me birthday cards and graduation gifts, all of them manipulated into believing I was dead. This is inappropriate, my father announced, trying to regain control. Please, everyone. No, what's inappropriate is faking your daughter's death because you couldn't handle her making her own choices, I cut in. What's inappropriate is lying to everyone here because you cared more about your reputation than your own grandchild. Lily, sensing the tension, wrapped her arms tighter around my neck. Mama, she whispered, loud enough for the front rows to hear. Are these the mean people who made you sad? More gasps. My mother sank back into her chair, her face ashen. My father looked like he might explode. You need to leave, he growled, stepping down from the podium. You're ruining everything. Ruining what, Dad? Your perfectly crafted lie? The story you told everyone about your tragic loss? I stood my ground as he approached. I think these people deserve to know the truth. That you didn't lose a daughter. You threw one away. Is this true, Henry? A voice called from the crowd. I recognized Mrs. Thompson, my mother's oldest friend. Did you lie about Olivia's death? The facade was crumbling. I could see it in my father's face, in the way my mother couldn't meet anyone's eyes. The perfect image they'd worked so hard to maintain was shattering around them. Look at her, I continued, addressing the room. Look at my daughter. The grandchild they never wanted to meet. The reason they erased me from their lives. Was she worth throwing away your daughter for? Lily, as if on cue, gave everyone her brightest smile. The same smile that lit up my world every morning. I saw several people in the crowd knelt at the sight of her, while others looked at my parents with growing horror. I think, Emma spoke up from the back, this memorial service just turned into a celebration. Olivia isn't dead. She's thriving. And I, for one, am glad everyone finally knows the truth. I caught her eye and smiled. This was more than just crashing a funeral. It was reclaiming my narrative, exposing the lies, and showing everyone exactly what my parents had chosen to throw away. The perfect memorial service had become the perfect revelation, and there was no going back now. The next few minutes were a mess. People left in groups, some glaring at my parents, others hugging me and meeting Lily. Mrs. Thompson stayed, holding my hand with tears in her eyes. I always doubted the accident story, she said softly. "You look amazing, dear, and your daughter is beautiful." My mother sat frozen while my father stood in the corner, angrily whispering into his phone. The memorial had fallen apart, but that was fine because the truth had finally come out. "Mama, can we go home now?" Lily asked, yawning. She was exhausted. "Soon, baby," I said, then looked at my parents. "I didn't come here to hurt you. I came because the truth mattered. You erased me instead of accepting my daughter. That's your choice to live with." My mother took a shaky step toward us. "Olivia, wait," she whispered. She looks just like you did at that age." "You wouldn't know," I said. "You missed those years. By choice." As I turned to leave, my father's voice boomed. "You had no right. We gave you everything and you threw it away for this?" I snapped. "No, Dad, you threw it away. You chose reputation over family. You missed her first steps, her first words. You missed being grandparents." Lily wiped away my tears. "Don't cry, Mama. We have Emma and Mr. Whiskers." I laughed through my tears. "You're right, baby. We have all the family we need." Emma took Lily from my arms. "I'll get her in the car." I looked at my parents, my father, red with anger, and my mother, crying as she stared at the spot where Lily had stood. They looked smaller, less powerful than before. "I'm not dead," I said. "I'm happy. I have a daughter, a business, and people who love me. I didn't come for forgiveness. I came to show that choosing love over fear was the best decision I ever made." "Please," my mother whispered. "Don't go. Not again." "I never left. You pushed me away. Until you accept both of us, nothing will change." I walked outside. Emma stood by the car, Lily already asleep. As I stepped away from that building, the past felt lighter. 3 days later, I got sunflowers. The card read, "You always did prefer these, Mom." A week later, an email came from my father's private account. A picture of me at 3, holding a stuffed rabbit. The message, "Lily looks just like you." I was wrong. They weren't grand gestures, just small cracks in the wall they had built. One evening, as Lily watered her little garden and herself, I had a realization. The daughter my parents wanted, the obedient one, was gone. In her place was someone stronger. "Mama, look." Lily held up a tiny tomato. "I made food." I scooped her up, laughing. "Yes, baby, you made something beautiful grow." And so had I. Emma texted about brunch. Mr. Whiskers curled around my feet. This was my family, imperfect, chosen, but full of love. The memorial my parents planned turned into exactly what they feared. A goodbye to the daughter they wanted and the start of the woman I had become. Would they change? Maybe, maybe not, but I didn't need their approval anymore. Some endings don't tie things up neatly. They just open the door to new beginnings, and I had walked through that door on my own terms.